Greetings, everyone. We are Ther, Rach, Eli, and Jack, and we are going to discuss surrogacy, its foundations, issues, and its occurrence here in the Philippines.
We first discuss the body of surrogacy. This part delves into what surrogacy is, its history, and what the current market of surrogacy looks like now. First, defining surrogacy. According to Patel et al., surrogate comes from the Latin word subrogare, which means being appointed to substitute. Moreover, Panganiban defines surrogacy as an arrangement whereby a woman, called a surrogate, agrees to bear a child whom she intends to transfer for custody and care to another or others, the commissioning couple or commissioning husband or wife upon the child's birth. Patel similarly defines surrogacy as an important method of assisted reproductive technology wherein a woman carries pregnancy for another couple. There are two types of surrogacy. The first type is gestational surrogacy, where an embryo is fertilized through in vitro fertilization. The embryo is then implanted into the uterus of the surrogate mother. The surrogate mother then carries the baby to term and delivers it. Gestation refers to the process of development inside the womb after conception and before birth. Then, there is traditional surrogacy, where the surrogate mother's egg is fertilized with the sperm of the intended father artificially. Hence, she is both the genetic and gestational mother of the child. Despite modern technology allowing for surrogacy, specifically the gestational type, being fairly new, and despite surrogacy still being a taboo topic, this practice of having a substitute mother to carry a child to term has been a practice that dates back to early civilizations, according to Patel et al. Example, in the book of Genesis, it describes Hagar bearing a child for barren Sarah through Abraham. Biblical Rachel also made Bilhah to conceive a child with her husband Jacob. Another example is that in Hindu mythology, Balaram, born from the womb of Rohini, is referred to as the son of Mother Devaki. Patel et al. Also lists important and significant events during history that involve surrogacy. For example, in 1980, a Michigan lawyer, Noel Kean, wrote the first surrogacy contract. In 1985, a woman carried the first successful gestational surrogate pregnancy in the USA. According to the studies of Patel et al. And Saxena, the reasons why surrogacy are done are an absence of a uterus, hysterectomy history, a cervical or endometrial cancer, structural abnormalities, severe medical conditions that would pose a risk to pregnancy, and repeated miscarriage, among others. There are underground markets where recruiters bring Filipino women, often from lower socioeconomic status, to other countries to become surrogates of foreign couples. Some cases include a human trafficking syndicate who hired several Filipino women to become surrogate mothers in Cambodia for foreigners of different nationalities. Another case included a Filipina who flew to Greece to become a surrogate mother with a compensation of 500,000 pesos. Her contract had clauses even that mandated her to abandon her three biological kids for more than a year, no sex with her husband, and a promise of no claim to the baby after birth.
In this part, we are going to discuss the dilemmas that are imposed on women and children when it comes to surrogacy. In the following slides, this will be detailed as we come to identify and explain such problems and dilemmas that are encountered in surrogacy. In an article from ABS-CBN, we came across the experience of a woman who we can call Nora, as she became the surrogate mother for an American couple. Surrogacy is indeed a taboo in the country because she could account that it was in 2016 when she first tried being a surrogate but was rejected immediately. However, only a few days later, when she was asked, when she was still interested to be a surrogate. When put into detail, the experience she had, particularly through compensation, it amounted to 500,000 pesos to carry the baby and another 10,000 monthly for checkups. When asked about why she had to do the clause meant about abandoning her three biological kids. But for Nora, she had to do it anyway for her children and family, just so she could provide and give them something. She could recall that the 9 months of pregnancy was an emotional battle, although the American couple was very kind to her. It was difficult for her because at some point she got attached because, of course, she was carrying the child, but she knew from the beginning that she could not get attached. Given the particular dilemma that the surrogacy puts on surrogate mothers, it cannot be discounted that this is rooted from the problem of certain women who are not capable of carrying a child. According to Rudy Frederick Mendiola, Cato Repro Biotech Center medical director, There are women who had to experience having their uterus removed. They have ovaries and eggs, but no uterus to carry the pregnancy. Thus, they resort to surrogacy. Aside from that, there is also a problem on treating infertile mothers in the Philippines, but ethical considerations hinder them from doing surrogacy. Pero it is already an illness that needs treatment, and it should be recognized as such. Aside from that, women also face the views that the Catholic Church has. Surrogacy in any form of reproductive technology is a concern for them. Para sa kanila, such technologies should only assist and not replace marital act of couples joined in marriage. They condemn surrogacy as it replaces the union of couples and the way they produce their offspring. There is also a criticism that surrogacy is dehumanizing. It fosters now the attitude that the womb of the woman acts as surrogate and the child she carries are only mere commodities. Thus could be reducing to the inherent personhood of a woman to market commodity, which also becomes a threat to women's rights. The next part focuses on surrogacy as a growing industry. In an article by Jimenez David, it says that there is a dark side to this business. Based on the explanation earlier, there are underlying ethical issues which in the same way gives room for exploitation. Because there is no exact or set price when it comes to undergoing surrogacy. There is also no clear law that protects the couple, surrogate, and the baby, which is complicated to do here in the Philippines. In an article by Murdoch, 4 women were detained in Manila International Airport. This article was in 2007. It has been said that there is a human trafficking syndicate hiring Filipino women to travel to Cambodia for surrogacy. These detained women were said to be promised about 10,000 US dollars. What happens is that, according to Philippine Immigration Commissioner Jaime Morente, said the detentions revealed a new modus operandi of a human trafficking syndicate that preys on our Filipino women who are enticed to bear children of strangers for a fee because of their poverty. This growing industry poses a problem, even if it seems as an attractive alternative for a surrogate mother for getting their needed money. And in the same way, the infertile couple gets their long desired baby. There is actually a bitter truth in it. In an article by Saxena et al., because of lack of proper legislation, both surrogate mothers and intended parents are exploited, and profit is earned by middlemen agencies. We could also consider the dilemma when it comes to the motherhood status of women. This is actually an ethical issue that was raised when it comes to the motherhood status of women that are involved. In an article by Patel et al. In 2018, surrogacy poses a question on the relationship between the genetic mother, gestational, and even the social mother. In the Philippines, citizenship was also questioned, particularly with the children of Karina Sanchez and Mar Rojas, where they had to get an American gestational surrogate mother. On top of questions on citizenship, concerns on parental authority were also brought up. Which brings us to another question that was raised. Should a child born via surrogacy have the right to know the identity of any or all of the people involved in that child's conception and delivery? We can mention here that in the Philippine context, in the absence of a law in surrogacy, there are questions even if both parties of the surrogate mother and intended parents came to an agreement. According to the law, or According to the law, the one who gave birth is the biological parent. If the surrogate takes the baby, the law will protect the mother who bore the child. Lastly, as said a while ago, there is an absence of a law on surrogacy. Because of such absence on legislation, if a child is born to a surrogate mother, regardless if it is traditional or gestational, the child is illegitimate and this status will appear in his or her birth certificate. While the status of child can be improved, it can be complicated if the surrogate mother is married and has her own children. The citizenship under the 1987 Constitution follows the citizenship of the Filipino mother or father. More so in cross-border surrogacy, this leads to problems in citizenship, nationality, motherhood, parentage, and the rights of a child. There could be an instance where children are denied nationality in the country of intended parents.
I will be discussing the social politics of surrogacy issues in the Philippines. On the religious aspect, the Catholic Church views surrogacy as a negative thing.
The Vatican released a statement before us that says surrogacy isn't contrary to the unity of marriage. On the local context, priests have expressed their views saying children made out of surrogacy are not made out of love and therefore deemed as a negative thing. Islam, on the other hand, does not have one policy about surrogacy, and Muslim people's policy may vary across time and place. On the cultural aspect, there are two main themes in the country when talking about surrogacy. It is that surrogacy is unexplored and surrogacy remains a secret. It is unexplored because the practice is almost non existent. There are no concrete laws about it. And based on the initial results of studies before about surrogacy being conducted in the Philippines, people have viewed it either negatively or in the gray area. It is a secret um, because it is also unexplored, and a lot of people do not want to talk about it due to the fact that it is still considered a taboo in the Philippine society. Next, we're going to talk about how Filipinos who have struggled with infertility view surrogacy. There are four themes that we have gathered. The first one is that surrogacy as the last choice. And the second one, the surrogate mother trying to take over the child, which may be regulated if we have laws about it, but later we will be talking about the legal aspect of surrogacy. The third one is the split between surrogacy as a compassionate act, or is it only about business? And the third one, as we have discussed previously, how the religious beliefs of people affect their view on surrogacy. Now we're going to talk about the legal aspect. So we have an article on the family code. So there's an article on the family code that says children born from surrogacy are legitimate children, providing the fact that um, there are authorized documents written before the birth of the child. But beyond that, there are no rules and laws on surrogacy, and due to this, issues may arise if the industry is not being regulated, monitored, and taken care of. So since the surrogacy doesn't have any laws about it in our country, disputes between parents are not being addressed. So also in the Philippines, surrogacy contracts are not decided if they should be valid or not, which may affect the parents and the child. So due to the fact that uh, we have no laws about it, human rights violations may become an issue, and the practice being questioned will be continued to be questioned. On the economic aspect, a lot of Filipino women view surrogacy as an option to earn money and, quote unquote, a way out of poverty. Some view this as a legitimate choice of work, while some view it as a way of women being subjected to commodification. On commodification, there are questions that were asked and will continue to be asked as we tackle surrogacy in the country. Is surrogacy truly voluntary if women are only choosing this work due to poverty? And how are we going to view the human body and personhood in terms of surrogacy?
All right. So now that surrogacy has been tackled, specifically its foundations as well as the issues, both globally and locally, it is now important to tackle what surrogacy is and will be moving forward. So now we address the lack of legislation on surrogacy here in the Philippines. So it is true that surrogacy is still a generally novel phenomenon, right? But as we discussed earlier, it has already been substantiated by quite a few successes and more noticeably failures here in the Philippines. This is primarily because of its overarching affectation on children and women's rights. So given that, no, it is only reasonable that popular and more pressingly legal attention be directed to it. And just to reiterate what Panganiban details, there is only one law that governs surrogacy here in the Philippines, and that is Article 164 of the Family Code. So this obviously does not suffice moderating the current traffic of surrogacy here in our country. So, with all that said, it is only appropriate that we highlight Agiling Pangalangan's legislative suggestions on surrogacy as it was detailed by Panganiban in his article. So, first is to prohibit all forms of surrogacy. Second is to prohibit commercial surrogacy but allow altruistic ones. This means that there will be no monetary transactions involved. The third one is to allow but regulate surrogacy, commercial surrogacy specifically, and fourth one is to allow all kinds of surrogacy arrangements. So, given the current situation of the Philippines with regards to surrogacy, perhaps it is only plausible to go with the third suggestion, that is to allow but regulate commercial surrogacy. And this third suggestion is what exactly Zamboanga City Representative Timer Adan Olaso did last May 24, 2023. So he filed a bill in the House of Representatives that aims to regulate the implementation of assisted reproductive technology or ART, as well as its associated surrogacy procedures here in the country. So if this bill actually becomes a law, the Philippines will see the establishment of the first Art and Surrogacy Regulation Commission under the Department of Health. So, as Representative Olaso reasons in his filing of the bill, I'll quote him: the enactment of an art and surrogacy regulation law is necessary for the ethical and safe conduct of art and surrogacy procedures here in the Philippines. He then adds that the establishment of this regulation commission will be able to ensure the well being as well as uphold the reproductive rights of the individuals and the families involved. So, as a way of ending, we recognize that surrogacy is indeed a pressing issue as of current wherever in the world, but especially here in the Philippines. So, now that surrogacy is more or less starting to gain legislative traction in our country, perhaps policymakers could benefit from operating on a medical anthropology standpoint. Because by doing so, first, they will be able to substantiate surrogacy through multiple sectors. Second, be holistic, so as to engage different spheres of society, from families to religious groups to medical professionals. And thirdly, the most important one, achieve a more humanized grasp on surrogacy based on the experiences and motivations of those who engage and are planning to engage in surrogacy, respectively. But perhaps before doing all those things, the first best thing to do is to demystify surrogacy itself and further recognize its complex occurrence in our country. Thank you very much.